Well, it's that time of the year in India when people look to buy a new house, as Diwali is considered as the auspicious festival. Therefore, to help you assess how the ground real estate demand has been so far, given the fact that many Gen Z and even millennials are tilted towards renting a house over buying a house, as the EMIs tend to go so high. But the question is, should a person in their 20s or 30s look to buy a home? To discuss all of this, we have on board Mr. Pankaj Kapoor, who is the MD and founder of Liases Foras, and Mr. Roongta is also joining us, who is the founder of Fee Only Investment Advisors. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us today on ET Now, and welcome to the show. Firstly, Pankaj, let me come to you. The festive season is around, and the real estate demand, at least in India, is still showing that upwards trend. But help us know, what is the ground situation looking like, and which are the pockets, and especially which are the cities that are driving the sales right now?
Yeah, so sequentially, if you see post-pandemic, after the pandemic really hit, we have seen continuous growth, and which has continued till June quarter. We have seen slight decline in the September quarter, and that was a marginal 3% decline, and largely due to monsoon and Pitru Paksh. Mostly, the September quarter is sequentially slightly lower in terms of the sales, but overall sense is that the market is still upbeat. We still have got purchasing power parity with discount offers, and the exhibitions which are being hosted by different developers bodies so clearly suggest that the new launches and the volume will continue to be growing. So it is still upbeat. It's an end user market, and builders are willing to sell. That's why the volumes will continue to be growing. And yeah, and when it comes to the cities wise, I see that the Mumbai metropolitan region has amassed the maximum. If you take the top 8 cities, so close to 26%, 27% of sales comes from Mumbai MMR, followed by Pune, which has also been doing good. Bangalore, Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, Calcutta, Chennai, all these markets have shown continuous growth over a period of time. Especially Mumbai and Pune has been the most progressive and highest grosser in that sense. NCR has still not come to the terms of its past glory. It's still little shy of its best times.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the take coming in from Pankaj, that across the segments and across the cities, especially those metropolitan cities, we are seeing that the demand is holding up quite strongly. And what we hear about all over the world is that there are some real estate issues comprising, but for India, the demand is holding up quite very strongly. But Harsh, let me come to you now, because on this topic, we want to highlight for our viewers that all those Gen Zs or millennials that are looking to buy a house, and you do the financial planning or you advise them, how do you see the excitement of still buying a property for all those Gen Zs and millennials across, and what's your piece of advice when it comes to buying a house or choosing between to go for renting a place?
So I know, before I say anything, just a disclosure that as a investment advisor, basically we typically make a fee based on the assets under advice, which normally does not include, which definitely does not include your own home. And therefore, to the extent that advice leads to buying more financial assets, there is an inherent conflict of interest when we are making that advice. Having said that, let me talk about this. I mean, as you have rightly said, there is this buy versus rent calculators that the millennials follow, and very few of them or none of them actually take into account the social cost of not owning. And that social cost basically is in terms of how your status, what is the signaling state, what is the signaling value of owning your home, even though it may be on a big loan. Is there a social signaling value? Does it affect the marriage prospects of the person owning? And till some time back, I think that social cost of not owning your home was very high. I think that cost is reducing. So, one thing is the calculators themselves don't show a very high cost, and the calculators favor renting. And with the social cost of not owning declining, I think there is an increased favor among the millennials to sort of not go through the hassles of owning a property in India, maintaining a property in India tends to be quite hassle-some. I mean, whether it is the buying process or whether it is even the ownership process in a housing society, etc., it's not a friction-free process. So, to that much extent, there is a preference for rental. Having said that, I think there is one big argument. One, the social cost still tends to be high. And the second is that a lot of these millennials do not have confidence in their ability that what they would have paid as an EMI otherwise, which would typically be 35-40% of their EMI, that they would invest. So the buy versus rent calculators assume that you would invest that and earn a certain income from that. Now, whether they will actually in practice be able to do that is, for a lot of people, the answer to that is no. And therefore, they might prefer the forced saving which comes out of buying your own home and paying a monthly EMI on that. And whatever the value, social value of owning also comes along with that. But for people who have confidence in their own ability to create an investment portfolio, it might still make sense to rent rather than buy.
Well, yes, from the financial advice point of view, Harsh, thank you so much for summing up that very well for our viewers and all those watching the show right now. But Pankaj, the same question would like to ask to you as well. When it comes to the preference for all these Gen Zs and Millennials, what is your research or what is your finding that what is their preference when it comes to buying a house or rather renting a house? The inquiries that you or the data that you analyze is suggesting that the demand, like you were mentioning, is holding up quite very strongly. Are these Gen Zs and Millennials get too excited, or are they participating in a big fashion in those numbers?
I always say that like everyone wants to buy the property, provided they are able to afford it and they are eligible. So if you take rent to EMI ratio, it is around 3.5 times. Like, your EMI is around 3.5 times for the same house you can rent. So it is more stressful in the sense. And then assuming someone has affordability of paying just 15,000 rupees rent while the EMI comes 52,000, then he probably have to go very far away from the city, and that becomes highly inconvenient for him to go and live. And that's where his preferences get reduced. So it is not that the millennials do not want to purchase and they only want to rent into, because they are not very eligible to be able to purchase. And that's a basic reason. If you look at that, when the liberalization and the pre-liberalizations, when the mortgage market drove the real estate market, so the median age of the house purchaser reduced from 50 to 60 to it came down to as low as 30. But during the speculative time, the median age went up to around 40 to 45, which has, since the property prices has not really appreciated over the last 4 or 5 years, the median age has reduced to 30-35. And this is something which is happening because of the eligibility, because today's to own a house, you have to pay the equity, and at a prevailing prices, if your equity takes close to 10 years to 12 years of your serving to be able to accumulate that kind of a money, to pay for the housing, and that's a basic reason we have seen the reduction. But as the market is have seen a moderation in the property prices, and during the last 5 years income has increased, the age group has started reducing, and we are seeing numerous people who are coming forward and buying the property. I remember I purchased my properties first times in my 20s. There are a lot of colleagues who purchased, but during the exuberance period, a lot of people continue to be desiring but could not really come forward to purchase the property. So I agreed to the point which was spoken earlier also, because it adds to your social value, it adds to your overall portfolios. But it is not that the millennials are not keen, they are keen, but their participation is less, because the reason is they are in the early stage of their employment, they do not have financial stability, and they do not have wherewithal to be able to purchase the property.
Yeah.
And the basic reason their participation is low.
Yeah, well, yes, it comes to a lot of dilemma when you have to decide to buy a property, because it takes a major chunk of your income, and especially when you consider the EMI as well. But Harsh, now coming to you, if one aspires to buy a property, and my simple question is, if I'm doing a job, I may rather take my hands back to buy a property in a city like Mumbai. But how do you like a plan that if in Mumbai or any of those metropolitan cities, like even Pankaj was highlighting that the demand is holding strong, I stay in a rented flat, and maybe in a tier 2 or tier 3 city, I go and buy a property where the prices are not that great, and from the rental yield also, I am able to compensate for a bit of my EMI expense. Is that plan excite you? What is your opinion on that?
So I think that let me just put it this way. I think everybody should plan for owning a home at some point of time in their lives. I think that goes without saying, because it's just not social signaling. There is the comfort of staying in your own home, uh, which sort of trumps everything else. The only thing is there are 2-3 factors that may militate against buying it too soon. One, I think in India, till you get married, unlike the West, till you get married, you normally don't leave the nest. That's the normal social construct that we have, unless you're, sort of moving away for doing a job, you're moving to another city. And that is the second part, that, you're much more mobile in your 20s and 30s. Then as you grow older and you sort of stabilize in whatever you are doing, and when you are mobile, you don't even know which city you are planning to, stay for a longer duration. And therefore, given the high transaction costs, given the high hassles, you may not want to you may not want to sort of buy that house immediately. But I repeat, everybody should plan for buying a home at some point of time. And I think to be able to do that, if you don't want to hurry, what you would have otherwise paid as an EMI, and Pankaj mentioned the ratio as, for every 100 rupees of rental, the EMI would be 350. So how many people can afford that 350 is a matter to be seen, but that difference amount, if you are, investing in a systematic investment in some kind of an equity oriented fund, the normal assumption is that over 10 years time, that will, give you
Appreciate.
returns
Oh, yes.
much larger than the appreciation that might happen in the value of your
Real
property
estate
that you
property.
would not use otherwise.
Well, yes.
So that would probably be a better plan when you are not sure. Buy your home when you are sure that you want to
Absolutely.
stay in that city.
Well, yes. So the clear verdict from our guest is somewhat coming to be like, take a wise decision whether you have to go for a rented property or you have to go and buy a house. But all those factors that you should be looking out for is what our experts highlighted, and you should take a note of that. But with this, thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us today on ET Now and having this lovely discussion. Thank you, Pankaj, and thank you, Harsh.